All right, we're officially on. So good morning on behalf of the Greater Statesville Chamber. I'm Shannon, your president and CEO, and it's a pleasure to have our state legislators on today. We have Senator Vickie Sawyer, we have Representative John Fraley and Representative Jeff MCNeely. All of you, we appreciate you being here so very much. We also appreciate all of you that are here tuning in and those that are going to be listening later to what's been going on at the state capitol. I do want to say a big thank you to Mike Tannick at Charter Communications for being our sponsor today, and you're going to hear from him and what's happening over in Charter. And want to thank Tracy, who's our vice chair for our Business Advocacy Council. We started that group last year, and several of you are on the call that are on that group and really worked hard last year to help us with our legislative agenda, so I appreciate that. It kind of has went crazy with COVID, but it was still a really great agenda, and we'll continue to work on it. And I wanted to say thank you to Brian Duncan, who's with ICARE. He's also our chairman of the board. So Brian, thank you for being on the call today. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and just turn it over to Mike. And again, thank you, Charter Communications. We appreciate your support and all the work that you do with us at the Chamber.
Well, thanks, Shannon. Charter Communications, better known as by our brand name Spectrum, is very pleased to be sponsoring today's legislative update. I'm sure we will hear insightful information from our local delegation on the activities in Raleigh during this unprecedented time in our state. As we go through this COVID pandemic, Spectrum understands how critically important reliable broadband is to everyone, no matter if it's for working from home, virtual learning for our students, keeping us connected with friends and family, entertainment, or through a Zoom call such as this. Since the pandemic first began, Spectrum's network has been substantially increased in activity. There has been over 30% increase in bandwidth usage. Through it all, our network has remained strong and stable. That's important to us and you. We've seen the pandemic's impact on the community and business, and Spectrum has responded. When the pandemic started, Spectrum took several steps to help. We offered 60 days of free service, internet service to students and teachers. We kept connected those who had a hard time paying for the bills due to the pandemic. We opened up over 500,000 Wi-Fi hotspots across the nation. We gave a raise to our employees and increased our minimum wage to $20 per hour. These and other actions were recognized by Forbes as one of the best corporate responses in the nation. As our students are going back to school, many in virtual settings, connectivity is important. For some, the cost is a barrier, but to overcome this, Spectrum offers the Spectrum Internet Assist program. It provides high-speed internet at a low cost for qualifying families. If you or someone you know can take advantage of this program, please visit the Spectrum website for more information. We know that COVID virus has had a big impact on the business community. To help businesses get back on their feet, Spectrum has special programs to address a variety of needs. Our enterprise teams offers a free month of voice and internet service for new customers at money-saving rates. Our Spectrum Reach team can create a multimedia electronic advertising campaign for you or your business. Spectrum and all of our employees continue to work hard to provide our customers a reliable network that will help us all get through this together. As we continue to survive these challenging times, leadership at all levels is very important. We are fortunate to have effective representation in Raleigh, as demonstrated by our guests today. I want to thank and praise each of them for their efforts to support the people and businesses here in Statesville. Again, Charter Spectrum is pleased to sponsor today's meeting. I look forward to hearing from our local delegation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Well, thank y'all again for being here today. I am Tracy Gibson, owner of Home Instead Senior Care locally, and vice president with the Public Governmental Affairs with the Chamber, and excited that we're going to be here this morning and talking about your last sessions in Raleigh, because to me, Raleigh impacts the way we do business in a huge, huge way. And we'd like to hear about your last session. And Jeff, since you'll be the first one that has to leave this morning, let's start off with you.
Okay. Well, the last session, the end of it was a madhouse, to put it bluntly. We were about 3 a.m. in the morning getting done, tried to dot all the I's and cross all the T's before we got out of town. Don't know if we got them all, but we got a majority of them. And so now we're going to head back on September the 2nd. Just real quick, just going to go over, I know y'all have like 4 legislative initiatives or goals, or we'll call them large categories, small stuff underneath those. Economic development, no matter whether we have a pandemic or not, we're always trying to grow the Iredell County, Statesville area, actually working on a couple projects with a couple people. So there's still stuff going on. Economic development hadn't caught the virus. It's still there. So we're working on that. Talked to a guy Wednesday night. Matter of fact, about a $20 million project. And I'm trying to steer him the best I can to Statesville. He wants to do it in Iredell County, and I'm trying to bring him to Statesville. So we'll see. Working on something there. Infrastructure, we're talking about DOT now. And I think my colleagues will tell you DOT is a mess, and that's actually a very flattering thing to say about them, just that they're a mess, because there's been a lot of waste. I told Dan Forrest the other night that we've wasted enough money not to have a toll road down in Iredell and Mecklenburg. We could have paid for the darn thing just about the money we've wasted. But DOT is right now back up and going. We have funded them more. Education is going to be something that's going to be ongoing through this pandemic. We're really not sure. That's y'all's next category. We're going to probably do more reacting than we are proactive, unfortunately, because who knows where we're going to go as soon as school opens. I really felt like we ought to be back down in Raleigh right now and probably getting prepared when the kids open school to react faster than September the 2nd, but it is what it is. As far as innovation stuff, innovation's money, and money's really tight. We're probably going to be about $5 billion in the hole. Not so bad this exact budget year, but next year we're probably looking at least $4 billion down, if not more, depending on how long this lasts. So, we're seeing y'all's objectives. We're always working towards those, because those are goals that we like also as legislative team. Biggest thing I think right now is where the money's going to come from to do all the things that we need to do. And it's going to be interesting for sure when it comes time to try to put a budget together. And then the next question is, after we do all the work and put it together, is somebody going to sign off of it and actually say we have a budget? So we'll see how that goes. So interesting times for a lot of reasons. Big thing right now tried to do is just do constituent work, make sure people get their unemployment. We've probably helped, I know, way over 400 different people get their unemployment out of Iredell County. It may be it may be over 5 now. It was coming 4 and 5 a day. And so, or more some days. So anyway, just doing constituent work, trying to see where we missed stuff, unintended consequences from all the executive orders. Really been challenging, especially for me being there just a year now, basically. I think I picked a heck of a good time, decided to go to Raleigh and represent Iredell County. Lucky me. So anyway, that's just a little bit of what we got going on. I have a bill that's laying in rules that'll help our local dairy farmers, all across the state, and I'm going to try to get that going as soon as we get back in. Everything we're going to do come September the 2nd has to be COVID related. We cannot introduce any other bills unless they are COVID related. So we'll just see how things go. Should be interesting. Should be a wild couple days when we go back. We'll see how we get things done. Wake up, Sawyer.
Oh, I didn't realize, is it on for me? Sorry about that.
Before you start, Vickie, did anybody have any questions for Jeff before he jumps off? Just because we don't want, if you have a burning question, we don't want you to leave with it unanswered.
I got about 15 more. I got 15 more minutes. So if somebody comes up with something, I just got to bug out about 9 o'clock. So if anybody comes up with anything, I'm hanging on.
And if
Very
you
good.
think of, and if you have a question, just type it in the chat box. And also, if you think of something after Jeff gets off, we'll make sure he gets the question so he can answer it for you.
Yeah, I'll be glad to get back up with anybody, call, email, whatever it takes. I'm there for you. So just let me know.
Thank you, Jeff McNeely. We appreciate you. All right.
Thank you.
So Vickie, since Jeff has already primed you up to go next, you go right ahead, Senator.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to kind of focus more on the day-to-day operations of businesses and how we're working through this COVID. One thing that you saw in this past legislation was that the General Assembly limited liability from the pandemic as a business owner. So you're going to see you cannot go out and egregiously not adhere to the mandates. So if you do put people at risk or in danger, then you are able to be sued. But we did put some guardrails in around for businesses so that they just can't be sued willy-nilly for having their doors open. I think that was some really important protection for us small business owners and large business owners, especially when you're looking at those folks who maybe switch their manufacturing from, you know, socks to masks and all of that goes into you know, tooling up or rechanging stuff for this pandemic as we all are moving through it in our own offices and our own lives. So you cannot, you know, again, you cannot be negligent, willfully negligent. You can't, it's not saying that, but there are some protections for those business owners against just being wide open or your flanks exposed to various lawsuits over and over and over again. Unemployment insurance, and it is insurance. It's not this money that comes from a magic pot that we can just continue to dole out. That still seems, first of all, as an issue, still having problems getting folks through the system itself. It's getting better, but I think I still have every day I have people calling either businesses or recipients who aren't able to get through. So we're continuing with that. You see it at the federal level with Trump with his executive order. The House and Senate signed on early for that, wanting that to move forward. And that's a lower level of unemployment benefit. So it's not the full federal 600, I think maybe 400, 300 from the feds and 100 from the state. Because we hear that, yes, people do need to have money to live, but that some people may have getting too much money. And it's hard to get fully employed. I talked to a business owner in North Iredell yesterday, said he's not fully open because his employees are making more money, quite frankly, being at home. So they're using that as a crutch. And it's a disincentive to get people back to work. So there is a delicate balance that we're still continuing to play, but we do hear both sides of that. You know, public health is a concern, but also getting your employees back and running. So unemployment will still be one of those big issues that we all need to look at. And then lastly, more on a federal level, we're going to look at, you know, what does business interruption insurance do, and can you purchase it for a pandemic? So business interruption, you guys know, since you all are in the community, means usually it means there's property damage to my building and I'm unable to open. Well, and so while I'm being reconstructed, then I will get a certain amount of money from the insurance company to help me continue my business. Well, pandemics are specifically excluded. I mean, you know, we all know that. It's just the way it is. And you've seen some of these retroactive kind of ideas that you can sue the insurance companies and take them down. And quite frankly, I don't know that that's going to go anywhere. But at the federal level, they're looking at moving forward, setting something up much like TRIA. But what that means is you would go to your agent, you would ask for insurance, business interruption insurance. It'll be backed a little bit by the feds, mostly by your premium. And then you have a set amount or an agreed amount of payout for the insurance. So God forbid we're in COVID again or whatever it is, COVID-25, you have to shut your doors. You and the insurance carrier already had a preset amount of payment for business interruption. So there's no adjusting. I mean, if you think about that, just adjusting that policy for business interruption, I mean, it's like you're going to have to reapply for a new loan every year. So they understand that there's no way to adjust those claims, but you can do an agreed amount policy. So those are kind of the steps, I think, moving forward that you're going to see. And it's politics. So, you know, 2020 is just really going to be rough these next few months about what's going to happen because everybody wants to get that next political blow in, which I frankly don't care for. But so if you do, like Jeff said, if you do have anybody that or any questions about things that you see or something that concerns you, please reach out to our offices and we'll be there to try to help clear those questions up for you.
I have a quick question for you, Vickie, about, I know this is more of a federal issue, but I didn't know how the state was working it as well, is the phase 4 with the COVID relief fund. Do you have, I know you talked a little bit about the federal, but the, chambers are 501c6s, and we have not been able to apply for PPP program loans. And I don't know if y'all have any influence of that up at the federal level, but it would be great if we were included.
Yeah, I agree. I see Will Bowen on here, so he may have a little bit more information about that. Now, the General Assembly did set aside funds, 2 different programs, and forgive me, I'm not remembering them right off the head. One is through Golden Leaf, and then there was another one that we just did, I think, through the Department of Commerce, maybe the
governor's office. a job retention grant. That's
it. Yeah, still, labor intensive to try to get through those things. But I think that's the state's response, and definitely don't know what the federal government's going to do. With that phase 4.
I just wanted to say it out loud one more time.
Yes, I'm glad.
And I know Will's on here, and Sam Shoemate is too somewhere. So, and we've talked about it in both of those cases. So, but okay. Thank you.
Very good. All right. Any other questions for Senator Sawyer? All right. Well, let's go on to Representative Fraley.
Thank you, Tracy. I think everything revolves to a large degree around money right now. And so if you'll bear with me a little bit, I might get into the weeds a little further than you want, but I think it's important to try to understand what's going on in Raleigh right now. We've got, and please understand, this is as of yesterday. It could change by lunchtime today. So things are very fluid, but it's important to understand that there are 2 different discussions that go on. One is the regular state budget, and then the other has to do with COVID appropriations, which largely come out of the federal funds, which is CARES Act, and then potentially something new coming out of them that is being negotiated in Washington right now. So let's step back on the budget, regular budget, for a minute. Of course, the budget that the legislature passed under House Bill 966 was vetoed by the governor, and the legislature was not able to override that. Therefore, what happens is that you have the budget from the previous biennium just continues on for things that are recurring money. That way, as opposed to the federal government, things don't just stop. So there are many things being funded, but not being funded to the degree that were in the 966 budget. Then you come over and you have the CARES Act. This was about, I think, $3.5 billion that ultimately came to the state. A lot of it went directly to different agencies such as Department of Public Instruction. I think there was 95 or 100 million that went directly to the government or to the governor, and then is spread out. But ultimately, the legislature appropriated 1.6 billion of that back in June, I believe it was. Currently, there's about $900 million left in that CARES Act fund that the legislature could potentially appropriate. There's vast recognition that there is a lot of need for that money right now, but there are all kinds of rules and regulations on it from Washington that are preventing that money from being spent. So let's talk about that 900 million. There's $350 and $50 million of that their legislation has already been passed to spend the $350 million. However, in order to do that, there's got to be some more flexibility on how to use it coming out of Washington. So that money is sort of off to the side right now. So that would bring you down to $550 million. But then there's also a discussion going on that $250 million of that may be required out of Washington to be sent to local municipalities for local government support. So all of a sudden that 550 becomes 300 million, and the 300 million is left for education, healthcare, things like that. So until all of that gets clarified, which people are working on daily to try to figure out, everything's sort of in limbo. The next thing that is holding things up is that the state is having a very difficult time trying to determine what the revenue forecast is going to be. When COVID first started, the estimate was that for the 1920 fiscal year, there'd be a $1.6 billion shortfall. And then for 2021, there would be a $2.6 billion shortfall. As of yesterday, there is no consensus forecast on what things are going to look like for 2021. And chances are they're not going to have that number until the end of September at best, because nobody really knows how long this COVID stuff is going to continue. So until you have an idea of what kind of revenues you're going to have, it's very hard to put together a budget. So there's still plenty of things out there. There's a $900 million in CARES Act money. There's potentially more money coming from the feds. There's still $1.2 billion in the rainy day fund that has not been touched yet. And you can go back and forth as to whether that should be tapped into or not. But keep in mind that over the last two hurricanes we have, the state wrote a check for $850 million to get the FEMA matches. So we're all seeing in the news that this is supposed to be an abnormal hurricane year. We can't responsibly go out and just spend all of that $1.2 billion. So there's lots of decisions that need to be made. And until there's a revenue forecast, and until something is clear out of Washington of will there be more money that comes to the state or will there not, and what the flexibilities are on how to spend that, things are sort of stuck. Now, that being said, there's a tremendous amount of work that is going on looking at different scenarios, because once you know these things that are fluid right now, we're going to have to move very quickly. So it's better to prepare right now and look at where you have a time to really think through things and get input from people of a best case, worst case. How's it all going to balance out? So there's a lot of work going on this in the background on those things right now. So that's sort of where I would kick in of what's going on in Raleigh. Everything is circles around revenue and money and what are the budgets going to be. The state constitutionally has to have a balanced budget. So we can't go out like Washington and just start printing money. So that would be it for me, Shannon, and if anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them.
All right. Thank you. I think I have a question for you, Senator Representative Fraley. Since you've decided not to run again for office, can you tell us some accomplishments that you're most proud of that you've done while you've been in the NC General Assembly?
Thank you. I think the thing that I've been most proud of is that I have looked at this as public service. It really is. It's public service. It's not about you. It's not about anything else. It's just trying to do what's best for North Carolina and for the district and our constituents. Beyond that, I would say I co-chaired the COVID Education Committee and still do. We're working on phase 2 of that now, but that, to me, we ended up appropriating a little over $322 million for education. That was COVID related. It made a lot of policy changes and things, and it was done in my mind of how government is supposed to work. Totally bipartisan. We had Republican and Democratic co-chairs on that in the House. Everybody was involved, and we got a unanimous vote on what we did. Secondly, I have been a chair on education appropriations, primarily focusing on higher education. And I think, particularly over the last 4 or 5 years, I'm quite proud of the proper level of budgeting that we've been able to put into the UNC system, the community college system, and the independent colleges and universities. More locally, Jeff and Vickie and I and a lot of other local folks, Jane Henson with the health department, Brady Freeman, Miles Atkins down in Mooresville, and county commissioners. We've all been very involved in taking a look at the thyroid cancer issue in the Mooresville area. And I think once the locally elected people were aware of what was going on, we did a lot to really start coordinating all the state resources. We brought in all of the academic folks. In addition to Duke University, there was UNC Healthcare, UNC Collaboratory, East Carolina, NC State, Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, a lot of people that came out of, some out of Dartmouth, and other experts from, around the country. And what started out as a very disjointed effort, I think, has become one where everybody is sharing information and trying to get to the bottom of this. And the final thing I would say is there's a group called My Future NC that is working on post-secondary attainment, which is essentially making sure that we have a properly educated workforce going forward. Right now, on 25 to 44-year-olds in the state, we only have about 47% of those with some type of post-secondary degree or certificate. That number needs to be up around 65%. And prior to COVID, we were going to be about 300,000 people short of that goal. Probably going to be higher after COVID. So the group, all of this work is codified into state law. that's working on this, and there'll be a lot more input or information passed along to Iredell County on how to work towards this goal. So those would be 4 things I think that I'm real pleased with.
Thank you. And we say thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
Shannon, Tracy, can I interject something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to, John won't brag. He won't toot his own horn. Y'all don't realize the work he's done, especially in education for this whole state. Worked tirelessly. It is, you use the word thankless job. That one is, because it's hard to please people when it comes to education. You're either not giving enough or you're giving way too much. And John has worked and worked and worked. And I have sat and I've tried to work, but I've mostly watched John and learned a lot. And he is a true public servant. I cannot tell you, he is one of the best representatives I've ever witnessed. He doesn't say a lot in public. You don't hear what he does. He goes about his business. And that's the way a true public servant should be. Not necessarily on the front page, but making other people be on the front page in a good light. And that's what John Fraley's done all along. And I can't thank him enough for what he's done for Iredell County and the state of North Carolina. I appreciate him and consider him a good friend and thankful to have him as a good friend and a mentor. He's helped me tremendously this past year, and I thank him so much. We are going to truly, truly miss him. We are. And with that, I've got to go to another meeting, but if anybody needs anything, please email me, text me, call me, whatever you need to do. I'm very accessible. And I hope y'all have a great day. And thank y'all so much for letting us come on this morning, especially me.
Thank you, Jeff. We appreciate you and your leadership in agriculture.
See y'all.
All right. Do we have any other questions, Shannon, in the chat room? If not, I've got maybe one for Senator Sawyer.
Chat room's clear. Go ahead. All
right. Very good. Senator Sawyer, yes. It's known that you have an extreme love of art and that you have a lot of art in Raleigh. How do you pick the artists that are displayed on the walls?
Hey, thanks for offering or asking about this because it's one of my favorite things to do. I work with the local artist guild, and they actually are the ones who reach out to the artists in our community. They schedule it every 3 months. I pick up a new batch, and it's an amazing, it's just wonderful to see the talent that we have locally, and that folks, really who are artists, they just want their art to be shown and to give it air and light. And my office in Raleigh, although the folks at the maintenance department, I'm embarrassed to say how many holes I put in the wall, and I may get in trouble a little bit when I move out of there. I have to do my spackling skills a little bit better, but it's just been a blessing to have that and to see what kind of art we have in our community and just to be able to be a voice for them and show their work in Raleigh. So, and quite frankly, it's wonderful. Every 3 months I get a new office, and it's, they donate their art for those 3 months. And so it's been really a lot of fun for that. And so if you have art yourself, or if you know someone who would like for me to display that, please contact my office and we'll definitely get them on the list. But right now I've been working with all the artists, local artist guilds to get those folks in the artwork in.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we have a couple chat questions, so I'll read them out. And it's directed to whomever. Todd Williams, thank you. He's asking, what is the status of the teaching as a profession course, which is currently housed with the UNC system? He's saying it's proposed to move to NCDPI umbrella, but was tied to the budget last year that didn't pass. So he wants to know what the status of that is.
Is there a name other than teaching as a profession?
Well, that's just
track of all the names. Explain to me what the program's supposed to do.
Well, it's just like the title says, it's a course for high schools that high school students are able to take, training them to be, early childhood education or just become a teacher. And as it currently exists, there's some articulation agreements with some of the universities, Western Carolina University, I believe Appalachian, and UNC Wilmington. But there was a proposal in the budget that didn't ever get passed to move that to NCDPI umbrella, just to house the curriculum and licensure issues with teachers and things of that nature. And then also the other universities were supposed to have a MOU about accepting that, or an articulation agreement. And we want to teach that class, but there's a lot of hoops to it right now through the UNC system, and kind of grow your own teachers. And I didn't know if y'all had any updates. We are teaching it at one high school, and it was because you have to apply through the UNC system. They have to have a master's degree, the teachers, and they have to apply. And so we had one teacher to do that, and it's one of my teachers. And so I'd like to see that grow at every school. So I didn't know if you had an update.
I think the safe answer at this point is that if it was in the budget and the budget was vetoed, nothing is going to change for this year. So you're good at whatever you've been doing, I would say through June of next year. But having said that, I'll get back to you later today with some more information on exactly where that stands. I don't remember the exact details of the program.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yep.
We have another question from Jim Tartman. Jim, thank you for the question. He wants to know about our state unemployment benefits, which are running out for many, though through no fault of their own. What are the plans to extend state benefits?
You want that one, Vickie, or you want me to? Yeah, everything I believe is tied back in right now with what's going to go on at the Fed level. There is plenty of money in the unemployment insurance to continue to pay unemployment in North Carolina, which is at, as you read in the paper, is at low rates and a brief period of time. I think it's 12 weeks as opposed to most people are 24 or 25, something like that. Honestly, I don't anticipate that the current levels in North Carolina would change. However, if this $300 thing comes through with the feds, Speaker Moore and President Pro Tem Berger have already announced their support for that and would pay that additional $100 per person per week. I guess through the end of the year or something like that. I believe that I'm correct in saying that the cost of that through year end would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 billion on the state's part. So I guess the answer to the question would be, I don't see anything changing in the current North Carolina plan unless the $300 comes through and then the state ponies up another $100.
Jim, did I ask that question correctly for you?
Yeah, my concern, Representative Fraley, is you got hundreds of thousands of people that jobs aren't going to come back for a while, and they're coming off that very short state unemployment. Forget about what the feds are doing. It seems to me it's time for us to step up and extend the $350 or whatever the amount is that the current state amount is for those folks to help them bridge the gap and keep some money in the economy. I
agree. I mean, there's no question about that. If we were to have an opportunity to vote on something like that, I would support it 100%. I honestly don't see that that's going to happen unless we actually end up going back into session sometime after September. Right now, We're going to be back in Raleigh on September 2nd and 3rd. We've got a very narrowly scripted group of things that can be addressed, which is only COVID-related appropriations and appointments, whether they be by the governor or the speaker or the president pro tem, and that's it. Now, if some of this other stuff starts to break, then there's what will probably happen is the formal process is the governor makes the request for the legislature to come back into session to deal with specific things. And that could potentially be one of the items, at that time. But I can't tell you, it'd just be pure speculation of when that might be.
Okay, thank you. I think that's really needed.
I agree.
I have a question for Senator Sawyer. We all know by trade that you are you're in the insurance industry, you have Sawyer Insurance, but you're also a strong leader in our biotechnology at the General Assembly. And you've talked about rare disease research on Spectrum's In Focus show, and you've also introduced a bill supporting the recommendations of the advisory panel on cancer research this past session. And I know Representative Fraley and Representative MCNeely have also led similar efforts on the House side. But how have your experiences in insurance industry, or have the insurance industry, has it inspired you for this passion for this advocacy in biotechnology because of your insurance background?
Yeah, thank you for that. So insurance agents, we're kind of in a unique position because we are constantly between the company and the customer and trying to translate a very difficult subject matter to the end user, which is the customer, and then also push back against the company in case something isn't going the way it should go. So it's uniquely positioned me for this position as a senator because I feel like it's exactly the same thing, right? So we have this state government that's sometimes very difficult to deal with, most of the time very difficult to deal with, and may not always make the best decisions. And we have, our people in Iredell and Yadkin County that need help and services from that company. So I feel like this role as a senator is very similar to me as an insurance agent, kind of like that middleman, trying to make sure everybody's coming through. And so that actually transforms into what Representative Fraley and did, and the team actually did with thyroid cancer. And I feel like thyroid cancer was a precursor on a smaller scale than to what we see with COVID. We're having the same issues with COVID as we did with thyroid cancer. And what that is it all comes down to data and data collection. And the state has had an initiative for a while called the Health Insurance Exchange that has not really got up and running well, but that's just where doctors can report information about different diseases that are coming into their office. It's collected at the state level, and then we're given that data to be able to make policy decisions. Well, with thyroid cancer, what John and I found out is that there's really no good data collection. I mean, and you're seeing that with COVID right now. We just had a lab that was sending stuff in electronically, but then there was 200,000 cases that were uncounted. You hear these like anecdotal stories about how someone was admitted with COVID, but they're not. I mean, it's just, there's so much misinformation, and it's not that there is, our local health department isn't doing a good job. They actually are doing fantastic with the tools that they've been given. But we need to, as a General Assembly, really beef up their toolbox, because as you see, there's so much misinformation or confusion about the numbers, and that really does become, that lays at the feet of the actual just collection, literally collection of data. At the very beginning of COVID, we had hospitals, and still today, they're faxing in their handwritten number of admittance cases. Well, there's got to be a better way than faxing in that information and then having someone at DHS like have to tabulate it by hand, and that's what they're doing. So I hope as we move forward that we realize as a state that we need to do better at collecting information and being able to report it accurately with full transparency to the public, because a lot of times what you see is just bickering, quite frankly, over what the numbers mean. And that's all because of our infrastructure needs to be built up when it comes around data collection.
Very good. Thank you, Senator Sawyer. That was great. Shannon, I'd like to ask Representative Fraley, is there an accomplishment that you just didn't quite get complete? What was it, and what was it, and how could we help you achieve that?
I would say the one big thing is where the bill that Vickie ran on studying cancer clusters in the state of North Carolina. And then Jeff and I had a companion to that in the House. Due to the COVID situation, we didn't get to push that bill on through for the funding to set up the groups within the academic community and DHHS to properly track all of this. And I would say that there's really not a whole lot that you can do locally on that, as other than continue to voice support and, you know, a need for it. It'll ultimately come down to looking at what kind of revenue is available, you know, within the state. But that was a big thing, and I think Vickie would agree that we've got to sit down now. I believe that the recommendation that came out of the committee that formed all of this was they're asking for about $500,000 a year. And I think we've got to go back and figure out, okay, how can you phase that in and still get the job done for Vickie and Jeff and whoever replaces me to start working on it in the long session and starting in January.
Very good. Thank you very much. Shannon, you're muted.
Sorry, I had we have a chat question in the chat room from Brian Duncan with iCare. Brian asked, has the state considered any eviction relief funding beyond beyond what the feds are exploring right now?
Hey, yeah, go ahead, John.
I'm going to say not to my knowledge, but I'm not really involved in that part of the discussion on COVID. Doesn't mean that it's not going on. Vickie, you may know more from the Senate side.
Hey, thank you. I think that you've heard discussions around the halls, but there's no been serious effort about that eviction relief that I'm aware of. Like John said, we do have the CARES Act dollars, and maybe that would be an allowable expense, but that's something we have to look for and continue, because there's so much, there's only so much money, and there's a great need, and so we have to be careful with what we do. Like John said, you know, we're a coastal state and there are hurricanes coming. And we know that that's tough for us folks who are Piedmonters, because we're always, seems like we're always bailing out the coast. But quite frankly, I mean, that's got to be a consideration. And so when we start talking about all of these asks for specific things like this, and although it is important, especially when folks are facing homelessness, you have to balance that whole the whole picture there and make sure you're prudent with the money, because we do not want to get to where we were 11 years ago with, you know, the unemployment insurance system being, you know, taking money out of to try to balance budgets over there, and just had a total financial mess because they were spending almost like the DOT now. It's very, you know, they were spending without any checks and balances, and what put our state into a hole. And when John first started his service, I mean, he was part of those discussions. So it's kind of like your own checkbook, you know, you got to write a check, but you need to make sure there's money in it. And so I know that will be a discussion. I just don't know if there's a big push for it right now.
You know, if I might jump on that a little bit more, there's all kinds of discussion that would go on. I mean, we're looking very closely at the child care industry right now as to assistance that might be needed there. Also, I know Vickie and I have had conversations with Brett Eckerman at United Way about some ideas that he had, or United Way had, on child care stuff. So all of these things ultimately, I think, get thrown into the mix, but until you really know the amount of money to deal with and what the rules are, it's hard to say exactly what's going to happen. And I'll give you an example of stuff that is just nonsensical that is coming out of Washington. That the universities around the country, when COVID first started, they refunded room and board to students, prorated over the year. Well, the cost of that to the UNC system was $120 million. Clearly COVID related, yet the federal money that came to the state, we couldn't reimburse the university for that because of the regulations. However, if the university, the rule gets clarified several weeks later, and if the university had told the students, no way, we're not paying you anything, and then the students turned around and filed an action for assistance, the state could have paid the students, but the state couldn't pay the university back for the university paying the students. I mean, it's just stuff that makes no sense whatsoever. And so I think just using that as an example of not only do you need to know what money's available, but what are the guardrails on it, or restrictions, whatever you want to call it, because if it's not done properly, then it gets clawed back by the feds.
Brian, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it did generally. I know you're working with only the information that you have, and you have to give consideration to the to the total state. I would just encourage you, as we think about the money that is on reserve for even natural disasters that produce homelessness. We're going to experience homelessness also. So I don't want us to get into a whose homelessness is worse, right, situation. And so I'm just concerned that particularly in the last quarter of the year, when some of these monies start to run out, that we're going to see an increase in homelessness in our area. And we know that homelessness is vastly underreported now. And so I would just ask that we just bear that in mind.
Point well made. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I have another, I don't know if it's a question so much as an observation and a comment. Tracy and I were talking probably a week or so ago. She was in need of gloves for her business. She's Homestead Senior Care, so she deals with, home care for those that need help in their homes. And so I gave her a website. It's called, that's kind of gathers all the PPE type things that you would need. There's several of them, groups within the region that are gathering one place where you can kind of order stuff, because we know supply chains are rough. And she texted me back or called me and said, Shannon, a box of gloves costs $23. So is there anything being thought about, or even in anyone's conscious about price gouging for these PPE products? And I know during...
Shannon, just so they're aware, last year at this time, a box of gloves was under $4 a box. So that $4 compared to 23. So yeah, that's what we're looking at.
Being from a coastal community, so I can see both sides of the picture. Being from Brunswick County, I understand that during hurricanes, there's price gouging laws are put in place and measures so that doesn't happen. Has there been any discussion about that for PPE products as well?
Well, that definitely is something that is a consideration. I think John and I were talking to Iredell Health Systems, and they were, having that same issue. That is largely a function of the Attorney General's office and the Governor's office is the ones who will chase down those complaints of price gouging and prosecute if needed. You know, so that would say that for me personally in the General Assembly, we haven't really discussed it or have been a topic of conversation. All the supply chain and that whole procurement process is directly under the governor's purview. And so that is, again, part of the Emergency Management Act and his program. Not to say that it's his fault or anything. I think it's just market forces is what you are seeing, and people who are trying to get these products out, and hopefully it will level off soon. But as of right now, I personally have had no discussions or heard anything.
The Attorney General's office has issued the price gouging warnings and having the law, you know, in effect relative to COVID. So if that's something that you want to file a complaint on, just, you know, say so, and we'll find out where that complaint needs to be registered in the Attorney General's office.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, Shannon, is there any other questions in the chat room for our guest today?
I think that's the last one. So does anyone that's listening or, you know, just has their monitor turned off have a question? This is an opportune time to talk to our legislators. Mike, did you want to ask anything further on behalf of Charter?
Not at this point, Tom. I just want to thank them all for being here today and participating with us. I thought it was very interesting. I learned a lot from it. I hope other folks did as well.
Same here. All right, I'm gonna leave John. I'm gonna ask Representative Fraley one last question. And as you're leaving, do you have any advice for the next legislator that's going to take your place in District 95? Vickie's laughing.
I guess my advice was that you probably should have thought about this before you decided to run.
Yeah.
But, no, seriously, I think the most important thing is just remember to work with everybody, listen to what everybody has to say on both sides of the discussion. And then, you know, they tell us vote your conscience first, your constituents next, and your caucus after that. And that's really very sound advice. But listen to everything. And people like to try to tell you you're so smart, you're the smartest person in the room and that kind of stuff. I've never heard so much crap in all my life. But just listen is so much more important than always being one that wants to talk.
My favorite show right now is Disney Plus's Hamilton that they've been streaming, and Senator Byrd tells Hamilton, talk less and smile more.
That's good advice.
Yeah. But I'm going to piggyback just real quick on the talk less part. No, real quick, it is the art of the deal anymore. We have a divided legislature caucus-wise, and so we cannot do a General Assembly one thing unless the governor's office approves it. So this old school politics where, you know, you have to be right or you have to be wrong and there's no in between, that absolutely has gone by the wayside. In fact, quite frankly, I think we get better legislation because of that. I think we should have some discourse, and that's how it's supposed to work, so that the finished product is something that folks can be proud of. You can never make everybody happy, but John Fraley's done an amazing job of listening to both sides and being that deal maker. I, you know, am grateful for that leadership, and I continue to work that way in the Senate. And I think we're seeing a new day in politics where those people are going to be rewarded instead of kicked out, you know, and I'm grateful for that.
Well, I'll just like to say thank you to everybody that attended today, and thank you for everything that I've learned. Thank you to Charter Spectrum for sponsoring, and Shannon, we always appreciate your leadership there at the Chamber to help pull us all together.
Tracy, I just like to say that I'm been most appreciative of being able to work with the chamber over the last 6 years or so. I also want to put out there that stay in touch with Vickie and Jeff, and then whoever replaces me, support them. I think that it's, I know from watching Vickie and Jeff in the Senate and the House, they've got the ability to be there for a long time, which is ultimately beneficial to Iredell County. They've got the aptitude and proper mindset to deal with all of this, assuming that their family continues to support, what they're doing. But get in there and support them, whoever replaces me also. And everybody's always there to provide a service. But you've got great representation down there, and representation that can be there for quite a while. And I'm saying that in all seriousness. I mean, Jeff and Vickie have had some very nice things to say about me, but in all seriousness, they're the team, and a really good team for Iredell County. So please support them and reach out. And support also means when you call and disagree with something too, but please continue to do that. And I offer my thanks to everyone once again.
Thank you again. Y'all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.